Thank you for being here. My name is Sérgio Amorim. I work at EDP, as you know, as Manuel mentioned. I'm a software engineer, simple software engineer who likes things that are built with quality, things that are addressed to the customer. So I turned out to be a DevOps engineer. And I'm here to talk about the DevOps engineer at EDP, wherever. You probably all know what EDP is, right? Who doesn't? At least in Portugal. But the thing is that EDP has changed, the market changed, but how did it change? It used to be a very linear process of the value chain. Started in generation, goes through transmission, through distribution, up to the end customer. This was easy, I would say, to do, but with all you folks being aggressive consumers, being producers, being consumers in many different styles, with your appliances at home, the market is different. It's all distributed. We have a very different value chain, very different scenarios where the customers are, where the producers are, and the business as usual wasn't right. We focus a lot on waterfall systems, mostly on processes, on infrastructure, with all the compliance. Not that we still have the compliances, but was a lot of focus on those kind of stuff. And a few years ago, we thought, well, the market's changed. We need to go back and focus again what's the real value of what we do. And we had to make applications that were focused on the business, that were deliver high quality, that were fast to produce, and had teams that were responsible from end to end. Because passing messages between teams with ticketing system wasn't good for us. So we come up with 4 new centers of excellence, centers of knowledge and responsibility, which were Agile, DevOps, testing, and cloud development. One out of single one, well, there's so plenty to do here that a single one wasn't enough. And why it was so, there were so many things to do? Well, these are just a few of the stacks that we work with. There are 11 here, I think. We have the major SAP installation in Portugal. We received recently an award in OutSystems. We have a good base of OutSystems also. Well, many stacks, many applications, all of them are different. There's not a single type of instance that we can do in all of those. But how could we make a framework that was common to all of those? We come up with 11 principles. These are the guides that help us build pipelines, build at least the framework for the pipelines. The principles are easy, simple, and most of you probably are aware of those, but sometimes we forget about those. Of course, automation is the top priority. We know that. Internal quality is also essential. We need to have a good structure in order to progress faster. Without quality, we can't go faster. We can go fast at the beginning, but in the middle and term, it will be hard. Amongst others, I won't talk about of each one of those, but we can discuss it later if you would like. But how can we make those principles in terms of a framework? Well, the framework is quite easy, I would say. It has 4 stages. The first stages is the one of probably the most important of them all. It's producing the item in isolation. We produce the necessary code changes, tests that fulfill the business requirement. And that's the key part. So instead of making things just going fast as possible to production, we stop, we seek for an isolation, and then we move on to the next phase. The next phase is the bundle of multiple items in the next release. The follow-up is the deployment of the application. And the fourth, the monitoring. In terms of details, well, it's also quite easy to understand. We have the development phase, where we develop everything from vertical slice, code, tests, documentation, wherever. Then we move to the automation part. Probably most of you, this is what you want, but it's not the focus. DevOps is all about 20% of the tools, 80% of the mindset and the process that we have, which includes the building, the automated parts, the code quality. You probably have this. Then comes the part of the peer review. This is the key part to pass along messages, but also see if the requirements are made in a structured way. Then comes the manual function testing. This is where the PO and the tester goes to see if the things are done according to the requirements, but without going too much deep into what the automated test could do. In terms of toolings, what we have? We use Bitbucket for version control, Git-based, Jenkins as our orchestrator. In terms of testing, we have a center of competence for testing. So here we use some tools, but we don't have a strict guidance for it yet. We have SonarQube for static code analysis. In terms of artifact repository, we're still figuring out which one we are going to choose. And about the builds, well, it's specific to each kind of technology, so I won't go in here in details. The next part is the bundle of each individual items that were good enough to go into the next stage. In the previous one, the PO should accept the individual requirements. So in this stage, we integrate those requirements. We, well, come up with the merge, we clean up the merge. Then we go back to the automation part. We again do the build. We again do a full automation of the test suite. Here we execute both the fast tests and the slow tests. We again see if the quality is okay, and we do a security analysis, which is much harder to do in the first step. If it's all okay, then we go to the, well, approved by the PO. In terms of tooling, I would only say the key one is the application that we use for static security analysis. Okay, we also, since we have the largest installation of SAP, I'll also mention the Charm as a package transport system between landscapes. The delivery framework is probably the simplest one to explain, but probably the hardest one to do. We have a stage where we deploy. We'll have a manual release in the cab, as usual, in the large enterprises. We do the backup, deploy, smoke tests. If all goes okay, we proceed to the feature activation. If it's not okay, we do the rollback. The feature activation is, you probably know, another term for it. It's feature toggling. It's one of the techniques. But the key here part is to separate the deployment for the release. So we try to make people aware of this. In terms of change management and logging, I would say ServiceNow and Jira are the tools that we use for it. In terms of monitoring, our center of competence of DevOps is still working on this. Not that we are not doing operation and monitor. Your electricity goes into your sockets, but we don't have a guidance for this for DevOps teams, not a real guidance for it. But we use TechDriver, Dynatrace, Tivoli, and email. It's there. It's always been there. It's going to be there for a few days, a few weeks, sorry. I don't know who put this slide. In terms of numbers, we have around 40 products now in the Agile methodology. We have about 200 applications in the waterfall systems. We currently have 3 million of line code analyzed. We have around 50 Jenkins pipelines. Most of them are producing daily builds. around 50 daily builds on non-SAP systems, and around 25 daily deployments on SAP systems. This goes around more or less about 4 or 5 deployments a day into production. So 5 or new bug fixes or new improvements a day. It's not much, 2 years of DevOps implementation. Well, it's a number. Major lessons learned. So collect as much info as possible. So in early stages, conduct meetings with each of the teams. If possible, if there's already a friction, make individual sessions and try to come up every pain point that they have or every good thing that they have. The part of the friction is important because if there is already friction, the teams won't speak as freely as if they are in the same room. And these meetings can go a little bit long, so take that into consideration. And every team is probably different. Even in the same stack, every team probably does things differently than the other one. We think also that the product owner is the key. He holds the money and is interested in making money. So show them the value of what you are trying to do, and will probably help you, well, balance between his needs and your needs. Also, it takes time and patience. We only have 50 pipelines, so it takes time and patience. Do it right, that takes time and patience. And also keep it under control. It's very easy for things to go apart if you empower too much the teams at the beginning. And if that happens, people will ask you for help for this, for that, and will leave you out of focus. How do we do enterprise scaling? We have a lot of training at the beginning. When we set up the teams, we do product owner gathering and training, the Scrum Master, the development team. We do onboarding, the coding part for the development team within our frameworks. That's probably the hardest part to do, and the most time consuming is for training the people. We also have a good knowledge base. Articles are there to spread the word easily. If the people have doubts, they go and seek for well, at least in theory, they go seek first the documentation, then ask for help. It's the other way around, but at least we can point to the information. Also, we have agile coaches and Scrum Masters and platform experts aligned to our center. So if the team is going off board, they can help them, guide them through the path. We also have a minimum pipeline with several rules, those rules that you saw before. And we also follow libraries that implement the pipeline with an open source model. What this means, the pipelines, the code, it's available. The teams can make changes, but they need to go through a pull request systems in order to be distributed among the pipelines. I think this is the easy way to make a decentralized system with a centralized point of control. And also we have control permissions because, like I said before, if you spread out the empowerment too fast, things will go uneven quite fast. Okay, what about our future? We are going to implement a maturity model because, or at least we are going to set up the maturity model because we have different companies, different applications, different platforms, different teams, different vendors. So where does it all stand? Where do we want to go? The maturity model will help us on that. Also, the maturity model will also give us the visibility at the organization level and will make the business see where the application is and probably give us more money or not to make it with higher quality or higher automation, wherever the maturity model will come up with. Like I mentioned before, operation in marketing is a thing that we need to address in a DevOps team, and we also need to make DevOps teams. Okay, we have few DevOps teams, you probably know the EDP Online application. Was the first application that we built with DevOps teams. It's working nicely. Obviously, there's plenty to do, but I think it's a good use case. Okay? Thank you.